And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Benched with Bubba, episode 530. Special guest joining me again tonight. He's been on the show a couple times, a good friend of the show. I enjoy chatting with him just in general, and looking forward to maybe meeting up in Vegas this year because, well, he's got all the money to do it. We'll talk about it here pretty soon as he whooped my butt and many others last year in the OCs for the NFBC. You can find him on Twitter at _Gildz, Gildz, the Gildz. How we doing, my friend?
What's up, Bubba? Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it, as always.
It's great. It's great. It's great to see you've made some of the rounds earlier this offseason because of your great 20. The thing is, okay, I want to clarify this now. We're going to talk about his great 2022. The dudes had great 2020, 2021, 2022, many other years. That's going to be a part of the topic as we get farther down here. It wasn't just 1 year. He just happened to finally win the whole damn thing this year.
Yeah. No, it's been like a 3-year run of really, the big finishes for sure. So
because you're top 5 in the OC for 3 straight years, right?
Yeah, I finished let's see, second during the sprint OC, the COVID year, fourth last year, and then took it down this year. So and I had a top 10 main last year as well. So yeah, it's been a fun ride.
And that's why it was a fun discussion because I know you were tweeting about it towards the end of last year, and people on Twitter, you know how it goes. They don't always understand conversations sometimes, but it's like Phil had an amazing year. He won the overall. He did a bunch of crazy stuff. Amazing. No one will ever discount that.
No.
But you made a comment on, let's talk about 3 straight top 5 years. And to me, that's called consistency. And it's pretty damn impressive because I think you could admit that when it comes to fantasy sports, not just baseball, you're big into football also. To have a consistent run of success year in and year out is not easy. It's like you're going to hit injuries, you're going to hit snags, you're going to miss that pick because you're way in between 2 guys and you just happen to pick the wrong guy. It might not have been the wrong time, but you just picked the wrong guy, and those kind of things happen. It had nothing to do with your prep or whatever. It's just the way the cookie crumbles, as they say. To do it for 3 straight years is really impressive. That's why I thought it was an interesting comment you made. I'm like, you're not discounting anybody, but it's a great point. It's like we look at the Bills who went to the Super Bowl 4 straight years, never won, and we still talk about how great of a team that was. They just didn't win it all. So the fact you actually won it in the end is different. But so elaborate on that formula. You can actually talk about it in more than 140 characters or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when it's a field of 2,300 people, around over 2,000 for 3 straight years, and I'm putting in like minimal volume. I think last year I had maybe 5, 6 OCs. The year before maybe 4. So I'm doing this all on very light volume. But I think that's to be at your best. I think in fantasy baseball, it's hard to put in big volume with the waivers and everything. It's too much. It's hard to give the attention each team needs, right?
Yep.
Week in, week out, over 6 months, long summers. So yeah, and I mean, I said that before. I think that 3-year run, I mean, it's just by pure math, it's going to be tough to beat. If I ever get, close to it again this year, I mean, geez, my Twitter is going to be on fire. But yeah, I mean, there were some people that after the first year, they're like, oh, fluky, 1-year wonder. Second year, oh, it must have been a fluke again. And you still have those guys. So,
oh yeah,
I'm not going to name names. They know who they are. But it is what it is, man.
That's one of the many reasons I like you is because you shoot it straight. Like you don't have to play the game. You're not that, and you're not. And the thing is, you shoot it straight, but you don't do it in a mean way where people take it the wrong way. Like you just make it straight up comments. So I wanted to at least make a comment on that here because I thought it was a very good talking point. It was interesting because not everybody took it the right way, and I just want to get that out there. But yeah,
I even gave it a name. I think it was the Gildz was the
something like that. Yeah,
somebody else can do that 3 years in a row. Craig never responded to that comment, but because we have the Lindy, right? He won the main and the OC. But again, I've talked about this in the past too. I mean, it's a whole different world of fantasy out there now. I mean, you're playing against thousands of teams. The competition's tougher than ever. So I'm not trying to discount what he did. That was still awesome. But I think when you compare that to the climate we're in now, it's like apples and oranges. So.
And that's what's crazy about it. And you hit on one of the biggest things that I know I have issues with and other people do It's the week in, week out fab grinds, all the grinds. And that's why, some people have too many teams and you have to kind of find your wheelhouse on what works for you. You said you did 5 or 6 teams. I think I did 3 OCs and then a couple other leagues. Like I tried my best to like keep it simple because I know it's tough. Like you have stuff that you said the summertime, there's weekends you want to go away for the weekend or whatever. Like it's tricky, man. You get kids involved, you get family, whatever. It becomes a hassle. So to put in what you did in 2022, what was it like? Obviously, the draft. I watched that in person. That was live. And for those that don't know, he was in the same league as me, so I got to witness his masterwork at firsthand. And then, but you just kept doing it week in and week out. You kept grinding the fab. You kept doing this, that, and the other. What? Let's just start with the draft. I guess we'll start from the beginning. And I've heard you talk about on others how like Goldschmidt fell to you, like different guys fell to you. But one of the things you mentioned in those that I wanted to talk about here is you were able to adjust on the fly. And that's something that people kind of have issues with at times. Like, I didn't like Goldie at first at one price, but then he fell here and I wanted to take so-and-so, but I took Goldie instead. So it changes your kind of game plan a little bit. But you knew what you were doing there. How did you go about that in the draft or how do you go about it just in drafts in general? I'm talking about that one. But how do you kind of adjust with the draft? How do you learn? How do you know what to take advantage of value-wise to kind of get you in that area of success?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think you hit on like one of the big pieces there at Goldie. So in that particular draft, I took Alonso in the 4th round.
Yep.
So obviously you're set at first base, but Goldie then falls to the beginning of the 6th where I was. And I think a lot of times owners would be like, all right, I already got my first base slot filled. I'm not trying to lock up my CI, in round 6, right? When they want to go for a pitcher or a close, whatever, that just turns them off. And, if you see like a great value like that, I mean, you worry about that later. You take the player and you just bank those stats, right? And the OC too, it's a lot more flexibility. Like you can fill needs more easily than you can in the main. So, yeah, I mean, to me, if you see a value fall, don't be concerned with blocking up a corner infield, middle infield spot. If you see a guy that shouldn't be there, just take it and worry about it later.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. It's one thing I've said a lot. I know some other people have been talking about, like Steve Weimer wrote an article on it, some other guys. I think it's something that listeners of my show might get annoyed by, but I want to like drill it into heads because I'm trying to do it. Is focus more on statistical scarcity. You want that end line. That's where taking a Goldie after an Alonso. People think the positional thing, like you said, who cares about that? You just want the number at the end. So
right.
Let's look at the big picture. And I think that's where successful players like yourselves and others realize real quick, like, hey, I can throw Goldie in there. Who cares if I wrapped up my CI? I just got another 30 plus home runs. I got probably 10 plus steals. Good bag. You just stacked up your stats right there where you might have taken like a second pitcher or a whatever outfielder that definitely wouldn't have been a Goldie level type guy. So,
right. Yeah. And I'd be lying if I said I was huge into Goldie last year. The age had me a little concerned. Yeah. He wasn't really running as much previously. So, sometimes you have to adjust on the fly. And, if you see a player there that you might not even love, but you just think, at that spot in the draft, you can't pass on that value. And you just got to hop on it. And I think to build these kind of teams, these huge teams that compete in the overall, you have to kind of have players fall in the right spots too. You got to draft well, you got to do the waivers and all that. But this draft also, there were some huge names that fell to spots that shouldn't have been there. So, which is funny because this league was full of
very smart people. Yeah,
it's by far like the toughest league in terms of competition. So it's just funny how that worked out. It's like my toughest league is the one that actually took it down. So
like a Sandy fell to you. That was a big one.
Sandy was huge. Even Manoa late, Romano, I got him like one of the last surefire closers, and I'm sure we'll discuss that. That was a big part of my process last year. Was I know the closers were a big point of contention among fantasy baseball Twitter, but I know Phil felt strongly about taking the early ones, and I was always like, to win these overalls, I feel like you have to kind of hit late on certain guys, right? You're battling so many teams in this thing, you got to get that edge somewhere. So my mindset was, all right, let me lock up one of these last, closer ones, relief pitchers. I'll take the last of that tier, whether it was Romano or Kenley, just whatever the last straggler was. And then kind of piece together the closers after that, the middle rounds, late rounds. So And I think another misconception too is, people hate or you can't find saves on a wire. I've been finding saves on a wire, for 10 years straight now. I mean, it can be done for sure. People don't like to do it. That doesn't mean it can't be done.
It's because it's work.
It does. It does. I think also people don't, realize, as you get deeper into the season, a lot of teams fall out of contention.
Bingo.
So then the waiver wire buys become cheaper, right? You're competing against less teams on a wire. The fab bids get lower as you go on. So you're picking up a spec closer for $2-3 versus in April where you're dropping $300-400 on them. So I mean, it's not a fun task finding saves, but if especially in this climate we're in now, it's like, there's so many committees out there. It's hard after those 6 or 7 guys, it's rolling the dice on a lot of these, spec guys. So
yeah, and it's one thing is like the OCs, 12 teams, there's going to be more out there, obviously, to go get, which allows you to be more flexible. At 15, maybe you're a little more urgent because it is a little trickier, whatever. But at the same time, that's one thing I've really noticed. I noticed it a little bit 2 years ago when I really started getting an FBC. And then last year, was my first year in the OCs. Like I said, did 3 or so. And I really started, I know we talked about it early before the season on the show, but I got to see it firsthand was how much the bidding goes down towards the end, obviously, because guys get so crazy early, how much, people just kind of stop caring. And it does open up the door for a lot of options in that respect. So that's kind of one thing I'm trying to maybe, change in my mindset, because my offense is always a little thing I was fighting, like power or whatever, or maybe I go heavier like on an Alonso type situation early and worry about some pitching stuff later, because there's a ton of it, especially looking. I know you haven't done a ton of prep yet for 2023, but there's a ton from like 100 to 200, even 250 starting pitchers that you could at least go to battle with if you can navigate that minefield. So there's ways to kind of go around it.
I think in OCs too, like even like when you hit July, into August, a lot of the teams too, which are already out of it, the teams that are in it might not need saves at all too. So you're literally picking up closers, for pennies on a dollar. So yeah, I mean, that's why I hate when people say, you can't fab saves. You can, it might take a month or two. Yeah. But if you're doing your homework and you're looking at these back end of the bullpens and keeping your eye on, who the manager's going to, maybe it's, 2 straight relief appearances, right? And he's on a obscure team or like on the Rays or someone, someone's not paying attention to him. You scoop them up for like $4 or $5, and then maybe you get 8-9 saves for the rest of the year.
Yep. That's sometimes that's all it takes. Just do that with 2 or 3 guys. Next thing you know, you have almost 30 slaves, and it goes in a big way.
That's what I did on this team. Yeah, I only had Romano. He was the only surefire closer I had on this team all year. So
then it worked out pretty darn good for you, I'd say. So you mentioned, we did talk about that. One of the things you were kind of waiting on was the later closer situation going into these drafts. What other kind of strategies were you looking at going into the 2022 that worked out for you as you went through your drafts? So like, obviously you weren't going for Goldie, but it fell there. It worked. Alcantara fell to you. Were you waiting on pitching? Were you waiting on certain things besides closers?
Not so much. No, I think, late pitching, I hit on a lot too. Like I had Rodon fall pretty late there. Bassett, another guy. Catchers too. Catchers, I slept on. I took Darno and Sean Murphy late, and they never left my lineup all year.
That's huge.
So those were 2, draft picks you didn't have to invest much capital in early, and you were able. I mean, that's a big positive. You could just plug 2 catchers in because more often than not, one of your catchers is going to be rotating on the wire all year. So to draft 2 catchers and be able to play them all year and not worry about that position, that was a big positive for this team.
Yeah, and you didn't have to pay a premium like some guys like to pay for the big guys up top, and then you're, what are you sacrificing? Who knows? Like, there's arguments that I can see for the elite guys. I'm not going to go into that discussion right now, but usually, if the longer you wait, like you said, at least one of your guys are going to kind of get rotated in and out. So to be able to wait like you did and still get to do it, and it's like you said, is everything kind of fell in the right spot. The Rodon, I think we did this draft before he signed with the Giants. So there was the question marks of, why did the White Sox not give him his deal? Is he broken? Like, what's going on? So that deal there. I don't think it was this draft. No, I don't think it was this draft. But I know you were even willing to take a chance on deGrom early. Obviously, mixed results there, but it's like you're not afraid to take chances. And that's kind of one thing I wanted to ask. In these 12 team OCs, like you're not going to take a full team of chances, obviously, because that's going to get way too risky. But what is your willingness to take some, boom or bust type plays? Because that's kind of what you need once in a while for that overall championship.
Yeah, I'm always super aggressive, whether it's on the wire or in the draft. Not crazy aggressive. Yeah, you can't draft a team full of risks, right, and just upside. But you got to pick your spots, right? Like there's some owners, there's some people out there that just cross people off their list. They fade them fully. I mean, to me, everyone has a price. So
Yep.
I'm not fading most guys unless it's just absurd early round price that I don't think the player is going to be, worth that at all. But yeah, I mean, deGrom, yeah, he's a guy like in these overalls. I feel like you got to swing. You got to take a swing, right? So you can't just draft a cookie cutter team and just hope that your guys produce. And it's a good way to finish third, fourth, fifth in the league. You got to take some calculated risks, and this last year, it worked out in a couple spots here, but yeah, you can't be foolish either. Like I'm not drafting injury risks on every team in the early rounds, but if a guy presents himself as a huge upside and he's fallen too far in the draft, I'm more than willing to take that pick.
For your fab leagues, you do primarily overall competitions, right? Main event, no seasons. You're the only ones. Okay, so when you're because people will talk about you can kind of go cookie cutter sometimes in a non-overall to just make your money. Like that's one way to go about it. But if you're playing in the overall, we talk about NFBC where the rate comes into play and how much money goes into the overall pool. It's like, sure, you can go to win your money back, and okay, but most of your entry fees go in a different direction.
Right.
So you kind of want to go that way.
Yeah.
So when you are drafting in these overalls, like I compare them to like GPPs and DFS. Like you got to take your chances and go for the gusto. We kind of just hit on that. But when you walk into that draft room, do you have like a goal in mind on certain things you're trying to accomplish risk wise, or maybe not risk wise is the right word, chances you're trying to take, positions you're trying to like or maybe statistics you're trying to dominate? Is there something for the overall that you're trying to focus on because it's an overall competition?
Yeah. So what I think we've talked about this the past two a lot. What I do after my research, and I'm just getting started now, but I like to identify 3 or 4 guys that I'm seeing that are mispriced during these drafts. So I'm just watching and seeing with their ADP, which is awesome. And NFBC is the best ADP out there. So
Yep.
Which I'm just looking at. I'm trying to focus in and find those guys every year that last year, like Gallen was one of my guys. I just thought people were way down on him. He had the off year, but he had 2 super strong years, like huge prospect, elite arm. So I thought he was just going way too late last year, and I had him everywhere last year. Now on the same token, Kalanick was another guy that I was super high on. So it doesn't always work out, but so those guys that I identify that are mispriced, I'm happy kind of jumping around or so, just I could grab them on my teams, and especially in those middle rounds, I'm definitely a lot more what's it called?
Aggressive,
yeah, and I don't mind taking those middle round targets on a bunch of teams versus the early round players, right? You don't want to really go all in on too many players unless you see someone really mispriced and you say screw it, go big or go home. Yeah, which is actually what I did 2 years ago with Vlad. I had him on every single main of mine, and that worked out nicely. But I mean, for the most part, I'm really just doing that with middle round targets, and anyone that's in that 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th round where I think they could produce 7th, 8th round value, even better than that. I'm jumping them around, maybe even 2 sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, is looking for those guys that are going to jump, and then you can jump with them instead of just kind of like ADP is a phenomenal tool, as you mentioned, but some people become kind of a slave to ADP, and it's supposed to be there to kind of give you a reference point, not the end all be all. And when you get into these bigger drafts, ADP goes out the freaking window half the time. So fast, just goes out the window. So it's a good approach to kind of find who you want to jump with, so that you're not taken aback when someone else starts jumping people and you're ready to
Right.
rock and
Yeah.
roll, because it
The
goes
player
fast.
gets too high where you're like, okay, no, I don't want to take him. But yeah.
It gets wild. It gets wild quick. Do you go in with a specific? I guess you don't have to give all your secrets, obviously, but like a starting pitching. We talk about waiting on relievers, but are you trying to get like one ace at least and then wait a bit? Or are you trying to like just obviously you could say what the draft brings you, but I know you have some game plan when you head in there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm typically an early pitching guy, but I've noticed just looking at the ADPs early on, I'm surprised some of these guys, some of these
Yep.
starters are dropping like far, like more
Yeah.
than I can remember in the
It's
history.
crazy. It's crazy right now, man.
Yeah, like I saw the first OC Wheeler was in round 6, Manoa round 6. I'm like, I was chatting with one of my buddies. I'm like, what's going on? Did I miss something? But it looks like the players are choosing to take bats early and often and letting these pitchers fall.
Yep.
So I'm wondering how much that's going to move, as we get closer to March. But yeah, that's my first shock so far, seeing some of these big arms dropping, into the 60s, 70s of these drafts. So
yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. Like, if you're comfortable knowing the pitching pool, you can wait, because there's like, even after that round of aces goes there around pick by 70 or so, there's a whole slew of guys that we used to pick between 50 and 100 that are going almost 100 to 200 now. Like, it's getting.
Even
people
Musgrove
really want those bats.
Musgrove was going in like the 70s. I mean, he was awesome last year.
He's almost as steady as they come. Like, you want a confident floor guy out there? Like, Musgrove's a dog. Like, it's crazy.
I know. Yeah, it's kind of upsetting me because I wish people would push up pitching. Right, it kind of changes the draft some, and kind of you could zig when others are zagging. But everybody's sleeping on pitching now and just jumping these bats early. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out as we move towards main season.
And it will move for sure, as it always does. But like, it's got to take a big move to get back to where it was, and I don't know if it's going to take that big of a move. So it's going to get quite interesting in that regard. When it comes to hitters, I guess statistics, we'll say, is there anything you try to make sure you're leaving the early rounds with? I know we all say 5 category guys. That's simple, but there's steals, there's powers. There's something you really try to focus on early.
Yeah, I mean, it is mostly speed. I really don't like taking players early that don't offer the speed component, and it's just so easy to build your team getting that early speed. And I thought I had that last year. With Tucker, I took Albies in a second, and Albies did next to nothing, got hurt. So that team I actually thought was decent in speed, and it really wasn't. I was struggling. Into half the year, I was probably in the lower half of the tournament in speed. So. And it also with the new rule, the new bag sizes. So I wonder how that's going to change. You're going to see more people trying to steal bases, more players. Do you need more steals now if the total's going up, right? To compete there. So I'm rarely, if I'm going to bat early, I'm not. He's going to at least have 20 plus stolen base upside if he's going in the first 2 rounds for me. So that's why I see like Alonso, who I love, Pete, and some of these thumpers, it's hard for me to take him in round 2. Even Vlad in round 1, he stole some bags last year also. But I like to build off that power and speed early.
Yeah, I'm with you. It is a great point with the bases, the pickoff rules, all the pitch timer, like all these factors. And some people are saying people will steal more, so it kind of drowns the steal pool. So it's not as important. To me, I kind of feel maybe it's more important to get the elite guys to kind of take that leap in the direction. Right. But it's a great thing that really no one knows the perfect answer to until we see it play out.
I think it could be both ways, right? So if more players are stealing bags, right, then it's less important on grabbing those guys that we know steal bags, right? But at the same time, the number needed to compete is going to be higher as well. Exactly. So I think you'll be able to find them more, but the total you're going to need is also going to be higher than in years past.
Exactly, and that's going to be the conundrum, and to see. I think that's part of the reason guys are going early. Hitters are going earlier. They're trying to get these bats to lock in stuff, because certain positions do drop off pretty quick right now, early drafts. So that could be part of it as well. But the pitching dropping is wild. It's crazy to see, and I'm really curious to see where it goes. Because like you got guys like deGrom, he's going around Spencer Strider around pick like 55 or something.
Is he going that late? Wow.
I think it's between 50 and 55 last time I saw. I actually got the ADP up here. Now I got to check.
That seems that's for
Oh
deGrom.
no, never mind. 29. He was
Okay.
like the 29.
I was like, let me start
no,
doing some.
no. 50 like 52s Rodon, 53s Wheeler, Scherzer's 54, Uriah's 54, Bieber
Yeah,
58.
these are
Like you got a
amazing
slew of
price.
dudes.
Yeah. I mean, it almost forces you. You can't take a pitcher early. When you see these guys falling like that, it's why am I taking Cole, in the top 20 if I'm getting Wheeler, or Manoah 50 picks later?
Exactly. That's what makes it tricky. Like, yeah, it's quite the puzzle to look at right now. It's like, what's the difference between like the Striders of the world who could be great? Don't get me wrong, but compare them, like you said, go Wheeler, get these guys later, 2-3 rounds later. Like, what's the difference, really?
I know people are fading Sandy this year too. I guess because of the low K rate and
He's still going. He's going right around deGrom.
Is he?
Yeah, he's going high.
To me, I mean, how many innings he pitched? Over 200, right?
Over 200,
easily
yes.
over 200. And I think back-to-back years, to me, I mean, people aren't talking about that enough. I feel like getting that volume out of that with those ratios. I mean, he's not gonna strike out a ton of guys, but if he's gonna throw 215, 220, I mean, he's gonna get you 200 strikeouts, right? And those ratios over that amount of innings, to me, he's still,
elite,
worth that early pick. So
yeah, his ADP is the same ADP as deGrom right now, 28.67 in the month of December. So they're going right next to each other. He's like the third or fourth pitcher off the board. Like you said, 228 innings last, almost 228.2, 205.2 in 21. In 2019, the full season, 197. So he basically has 3 straight 200 inning seasons, all with the ratios of 228, 319, 388.
Right. Yeah. And if you're getting those ratios over that volume of innings, I mean, that's a needle mover for me. So I'll give up those Ks, right, for that extra ratio protection there. I mean, that's how I see it. And, he's not striking out 4 per 9 either. I mean, he'll get you 200 Ks close to it.
He's like Framber Valdez. He's not a world beater, but he pitches 7+ innings every start. He's going to rack up the strikeouts. That's what they do.
It's like getting at bats from hitters. Those innings add up, and if you're getting those elite ratios over such a large, because I mean, what's the average innings pitched? For a starter now, 170, 160 maybe.
Probably like 160.
Yeah. So I mean, he's pitching 210, 220. That's a needle mover. So I mean, that's a guy I'll be on. If people are starting to fade him, I'll definitely be eyeing Sandy round 3, round 4.
Yeah, if you look at just last season alone, there was only 8 pitchers that threw 200 or more innings. Sandy led the way with 228. Nola was second with 205.
Nola's another guy too that I
love Nola.
He'll give you the Ks. His ratios will be good. People just don't like drafting Aaron Nola that early, I guess. But
I'm on board with that one.
Yeah, so he's another guy, and both of them are on this team of mine. So maybe I'm partial to them also.
But Nola. Everyone gets annoyed with him because he has that start where he's good, has like that one bad inning, and it just like scars everybody. If you look at the end line every year, it's like mid-3 ERA, big strikeouts. Like, this is what the dude does. So
and that's a good guy to pair if you're going to wait on aces like 3-4. You go Sandy, Nola. You're going to get the Ks with Nola, offsets the lack of Ks with Sandy. You get elite ratios. I mean, 400+ innings. I mean, that's a nice pairing after 2 bats early. I'm already building a team in my head right now.
So. You're welcome. You think you're going to dig into 2023 so soon?
I'm there.
I've gone a lot. I've done a lot of Nola Musgroves early.
Yeah,
and I can live with that. If I decide I'm going to wait a little bit longer on pitching, I have no problem going like Nola Musgrove and just like going to battle.
There you go. Yeah, that's a nice one too.
There's a lot out there it's interesting. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, it's always nice on paper when it starts out. But what other, like, don't give all your tricks, like I said. What other kind of tips when you walk in to do an overall draft? Like, what other like things are you looking to make sure you accomplish before you live that draft? Like, that makes you not just a basic team. Like, you're going in there to do X, Y, or Z.
I think knowing the room is a big skill, I say, or a plus that a lot of owners aren't conscious enough of what the owners around them are doing. Right, you're kind of tunnel vision on your own team. What do I need here? What do I need there? But if you look at if the teams around you, if you're drafting like out of the 9 or 10 hole, or converse like in 3 or 4 or whatever early, look at the corner picks. Kind of see what they need, see what they don't need. Maybe you could sleep on a guy until it wraps around, right? Mm-hmm. That you can see that these teams already have their closers locked up, and you need the closer. take a different position there, different player, and then gamble that closer likely comes back to you 4 or 5 picks later. Just little edges like that where I don't think people kind of look around them enough in the draft room, and I feel like you might, it's not a huge edge, but it's those small subtle edges. I feel like that you might get a couple players where you didn't think you would get them, otherwise. So I think it goes kind of back to the earlier point where owners are just, they don't want to, they're too concerned with their own team. They don't want to take a player or duplicate a position, stuff like that. So, just you got to be conscious too, just not your own team, just, of other teams around you.
You mean you're not walking into the draft with your spreadsheet and the numbers and you're sticking to your rules? You're more worried about the room and not
well,
all the
that
other
too.
stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I have
I'm kidding.
I have my Excel out, like, I'm doing all the tracking of my guys as well. It's just those small nuances. I feel like,
It's
that kind of gets overlooked sometimes in drafts where, like I said, sometimes, you could wait on a player. People hate that feeling, right? You see a guy that you really want, you're
playing
first
chicken.
instinct, click that button, boom, boom, boom. Yes, I got him.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe he can fall that 4 or 5 extra spots, and you grab another guy that you like nearly as much. You get both guys instead. So, just little stuff like that.
Yep, 100%. Let's talk a little 2023. And we talked a little off air about it. We talked about Vegas, and you're going to come out there to do some drafting. You're getting going into DC here. What's your plan? What's your portfolio going to look like for 2023?
It's probably going to look a lot like my portfolio this past year, which, I said that somewhere else and they laughed, I think. But I just can't. Football is a different beast. Like I said earlier, baseball, I can't give the attention my teams need, right? If I put too much volume in. So, I put in 3 mains before. That's probably where I'm going to finish, depending on, if I see a room or something that I might want to jump in. But I'll probably do around 6 OCs, 3 mains. I'm doing the DCs. That kind of just helps me prep, for the main season, and just to kind of learn the player pool and whatnot. Then I'll just mess around. I'll do some best balls, which I find them fun. I don't know, just sprinkle around different team, different formats.
They're totally different too. It's totally different format. So it's like, to
me, that's just like fun drafting.
It's fun drafting. If anything, it almost keeps your like brain fresh to keep, like I said, just kind of getting in the doldrums of doing the same 15 over and over again. It's like, okay, I got to think outside the box for a minute, and then you all of a sudden you're like, well, maybe this guy's better than I thought. Like, let's reevaluate things for a draft because you thought differently about his OBP skills or whatever works in the best ball world type thing.
It's funny too. When I first did the best ball, I think it was the cut line maybe a couple of years ago. I really didn't even know what the hell I was doing. Like I was taking guys, with just single position eligibility, and I remember reaching out to Curtis Jones, who's like
one of the best
players there. I'm like, dude, what am I doing wrong here? And he was just giving me pointers and stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, so this makes sense. So like, you want a LeMahieu, right, early? Because I'm thinking like, why the hell are they taking LeMahieu this early, right? Because he's got 4 positions he's eligible as. So, once I kind of learned the basics of it, then I was like, okay, now I understand. And, I'm grabbing every multi-position eligible player now. Like half my roster, each guy has like 4 positions he play at now. So, there's nuances to that also. So, I mean, I love it all, man. I just February, March draft season is probably my favorite time of the year. For
awesome. It's the best. It's absolutely the best. You've done a little deep diving, you said a little bit. I wouldn't say deep dive, a little bit into it. Any players standing out to you like going, wow, better than I thought last year? Maybe I should, pay a little more attention to them this year. Or anybody that's like standing out to you going, okay, I need to move them up my board, or just anything that stood out to you player-wise.
Yeah, I see. I think O'Neal Cruz is an interesting guy to me. He was on my team last year, and I know, the batting average, a lot of people are concerned over. He can't hit lefties and whatnot. I mean, to me, that's a guy that I love in these overall competitions. It's just, the sky is the limit there. And he hits the ball so hard too. I mean, he makes an adjustment here or there. He's still young. He's so young. He's going to get better and better. To me, the ceiling is just so high. It's like I see him going to 70s and 80s. To me, that's a guy that, I would definitely jump a little bit. Yeah, just that profile, just the risky batting average. And that's another thing I said too in the past is where people get really scared off by batting average. I'm willing to kind of gamble there over other categories because we've seen, batting average fluctuate, 20, 30 points, one hot month versus one cold month. It doesn't take too much for a 235 hitter to hit 250. You know what I mean? So,
well, in this era of baseball right now, like the average batting average in baseball is 235.
Right.
So
yeah.
it's totally different than what it used to be.
That was Adolis last year too. That was the same guy. You fell way too far in drafts. People were scared off of his average, being an anchor on your team, and he gave you all the power and speed. And to me, that was just a guy that screamed value there. And I think he hit 250, 255, something like that last year. I mean, he was a monster for fantasy. So if I'm going to gamble in any category, it's definitely batting average. I'm not taking Joey Gallo. We know what Gallo is, but these guys that are young and up and coming and have the pedigree and the prospect, I'm definitely more willing to gamble on their upside versus, a Gallo type or someone that's been around and what you're getting there.
I like it. What about these new rules? We kind of talked about the bases and the clocks and all that stuff. How much are you going to factor that into your drafting? Because for me personally, I'm just going to be the caveman in me. Like, I'm just going to draft who I know how to draft. I have no control over this stuff. I have no idea how it's going to play out. If someone tells you they know, they're crazy. Like, it's wrong. So how are you going about it? Are you just going to ignore them and see what happens, or do you actually have a plan?
Probably similar to you, but I'll be honest. It's like, you don't want to do, what is it? Paralysis by overanalysis, right?
Yep.
I mean, I think averages will be up probably across the board, right?
Exactly.
Especially now. I mean, you'll see guys that, definitely more affected by the shift than others, but it's not, maybe I'll use it as a tiebreaker, between two guys. If one of the guys I think could, see a bigger bump in batting average because of the shift and whatnot. But I mean, it's not going to be something that, it's going to be a factor, right, when I'm going into drafts. So,
yeah. I just find it comical. Some people are spending so much time on it. And I'm like, if anything, I think it's like you just said, it can almost be like kind of equal across the board in the end game. Like, sure, some guys might spike here or there, but in the end game, I think it's going to kind of wash in the system.
Yeah, and I know there's definitely a few outliers out there that just get crushed by it. So I mean, you'll definitely see a boost in their average and whatnot, but I mean, it's not enough for me to kind of go crazy over the whole field of players.
Will it boost their power and stuff? Probably not. So we're good in that scenario. What about the new schedule? Now, this is one that I think is interesting. Like, it's still kind of probably more work than I'm used to doing on trying to plan things out, but the balanced schedule is different because we used to love, like, certain divisions. It's tough to hit in because the pitching's so great across the board. Or, these guys get to play half their game, like 9-10 games in Coors. That's huge now. They don't anymore. So on and so forth. Are you going to try to look into that a bit more? To me, at least, that's kind of, you can kind of quantify that scenario.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely a bigger factor, right? Where you're going to see, obviously, some ballparks definitely lean towards, better hitting results. So for sure, I mean, you can see tangible results, more so than, the few players that are going to benefit more off the shift. But yeah, to me, that's definitely a bigger factor. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's when I'm looking forward to the smarter people than me to come out with those articles, like the Sarises of the world and
Right.
stuff, like really break it down for me on how this works, because in my head I can be like, okay, cool, the NL West takes a hit because they're not playing that much in Coors, or the AL East and NL East all have a lot of really good pitchers. Well, they're not going to face them as often anymore, so on and so forth. And we used to love the Central divisions because they all stink, and now that's a little different. So it will, I think, kind of space that out a little more and make that a little more enticing as well. Let's talk Mets. Unless you have any more new rules talk, but that's so much fun.
Nah, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's interesting too. The Mets, man, it's been a fun, ever since Stevie Cohen took over. I mean, I'm in New Jersey too, so it's all sports talk. It's all Mets, Yankees where I am. So it's just great being a fan right now of the Mets. It's a fan that owns your team. He's a Mets fan. So like, it's like winning a lottery, like you buy the Mets, you're like, all right, I'm going to buy every fucking player out there. Why not?
That's awesome.
And that's what, he's like, you're watching a fan of the team just buy people. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's what Mark Cuban wishes he could do, but there's actually
Right.
rules in the NBA. That's
Right.
pretty much what took place there, which is funny because then baseball wouldn't let Cuban get the Cubs, and he'd probably be doing the same thing right now. But the Mets,
It's funny too. I got a buddy who's a huge Yankee fan, and he was texting me after the Correa deal. Well, which is still in limbo, but he's like, Steve
your
Cohen.
turn now. Tag you're it as the Giants screwed it up. It's your turn now.
Yeah, pretty much. Although I think they'll come to an agreement.
Yeah, I think you guys will figure it out.
But he was telling me, oh, Cohen's ruining baseball, all this. I'm like, dude, you're a Yankees fan.
Yeah.
You guys, this was your MO. This is what the Yankees were for 20 years in the late 90s.
Leg to stand on right now.
George Steinbrenner. I mean, he's the new George. So I'm like, Yankee fans cannot be complaining about this. This is what they lived through, for the last 20 years.
You got to sit and watch them do this across the city from you guys and win championships. Now it's your turn to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, the Mets spent money under the Wilpons, but they spent it, they spent dumb money. You get the idea. Steve Cohen, he'll spend whatever, a fortune, but I mean, he's buying like wise investments. Like he didn't go near Judge. He didn't want any part of that. Mm-hmm. Even deGrom, who Mets fans, we were devastated, but didn't even entertain deGrom. Yep. They didn't come close. They weren't going close to that number. So he's a guy that's would spend any amount of money, but he's going to spend it like wisely. So that's what I like about him.
And that brings me to my next question. We're going to talk some players here. And first, we will talk to deGrom real quick, though, just because he was, like we talked about him earlier, gets that 5-year deal in Texas. I don't care about the length and the money. But they were willing to give him the money, and the Mets weren't, which I was kind of – I think more the long-term than the money part is what was the concern. I think the Mets are kind of willing for like 2 years maybe, as we'll talk about in a minute.
3,
yeah.
But it wasn't like near –
5 wasn't happening.
No.
But at the same time, the fact he got paid makes me feel a little more comfortable going into 2023 draft-wise with him. Are you good with deGrom in your eyes?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm always good with deGrom. It's just, yeah. I mean, listen, we know he's the best pitcher by a mile when he's pitching, right? So if he could just give us 150 innings, I mean,
exactly.
If he could do that, I would take him in, round 2, every draft. It's just, they're probably gonna baby him a little bit, which they should, I guess. I know he wants to dial down his velocity, but I think that's easier said than done. I watched him every start. This guy's a competitor. He wants to throw 101. He doesn't want to throw 96. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that takes away from his greatness too. So it'll be interesting to see that balance of what he how he chooses to pitch. If he's going to be the same guy, there's that same concern is going to be there, I guess. But I guess long-winded answer. Yes, I'm always in on him. It's going to be hard, fading him and, or passing on him in round 3 of these DCs and whatnot. So yeah, no, that's a guy. I mean, listen, if you get anything more than 150 innings, I mean, he's a smash in that part of the draft. It's just, can you get that 150?
So you're here to hear first, folks. In March, you better take him in the first round if you're drafting with the Gildz. So otherwise, you won't get him.
But people too. Once he's out there throwing 100.
Oh, the first clip of in pitchers and catchers report in February. Oh yeah,
I said that last year too. So
yeah, it happened. It happened.
Yeah.
He was already going early.
Yep.
That takes us to Verlander, though. You talk about a guy that's competitive that wants to throw 100 all the time, and that's Verlander still. But and I was all in on him last year. I was like, if they're signing him, they're not going to innings eat him. Like, he's going to go out there and work because he's a competitor, just like you said about deGrom. The Mets gave him a couple years here, so that's pretty big, obviously. I'm pretty comfortable with deGrom still. He's getting older. There's no doubt about it. But are you good with deGrom, even though he's getting older in New York? There?
Verlander, yeah.
Verlander, sorry.
No, that's all right. Verlander. Yeah, and he was gone. Because I was surprised he was falling too.
He's falling. I got it right here again. I'll pull it up.
I mean, I do not understand that at all. That's why, like, maybe I'm just rusty. I get back into the swing of things.
He's got ADP of like 46.
46, right? And he's on
after Nola, after McClanahan.
He's pitching in Citi Field, right, on a team that just won 101 games. I mean, I guess you're banking on him. I mean, he looked amazing last year. I guess one of his best years probably ever, right? Stat-wise. So, yeah, to me, in the 40s, I'm slamming that pick for sure. So, I mean, he could easily go out there, strike out 250 guys, 18 wins, elite ratios. So, I mean, if I'm getting that guy in the 4th round, I'm happy about it.
You have your ear to the New York media, as you said. It's all over the radios and everything. What's the hype? What's the buzz on Mr. Kodai Senga that they brought over from Japan? Who looks awesome, he's got the repertoire, but like depends on who you read. He's either like the 3rd or 4th starter, or he's a long man. I believe he's a starter, but there's still people writing like they don't know if he can make it, the whole season. So I'm curious.
I mean, they envisioned him as a starter for sure.
Yeah.
They gave him start. I mean, what is he making? 15
He's getting starter money.
He's getting starter money. The problem, I'm not the problem. It's just the concern is usually when these guys first come over, it takes them some time to adjust, right? Mm-hmm. You don't really see them dominate, maybe not dominate even, but like be like a plus pitcher from Jump Street. So I could see him, maybe early on, struggling. It's a whole new game to him over here. So, yeah, I mean, maybe I'd be more comfortable maybe next year than I would this year for him. But yeah, I mean, he's on a great team too. He should strikeouts, wins, that should be there. So it's just a matter of how he handles the pressure of pitch. I mean, from everything you're reading, he seems like a guy that can handle the pressure pretty well too. So he's excited to be here. So I guess we'll see, man. You just don't know with these guys, right? I mean,
100%.
Could be Kei Igawa, or he could be who's the guy, the Blue Jays, who everyone kept waiting to smash. And
oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's never happened.
The lefty.
Yeah, never happened.
Did he get traded? Is he still on the Jays?
Well, Hyun-Jin Ryu's there, but you're talking about somebody else. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about oh crap, he's still there. That just totally hit me now. I got roster resource up here. He's still there.
Everybody's favorite.
They signed him last year. He totally tanked. You say Kikuchi.
Yeah, Kikuchi. Yeah, everyone's sleeper, and he just he just never panned
bombed in a big way. You guys made some other pitching moves. You have Jose Quintana, great baseball move, kind of fantasy viable at times. I could see a little bit of appeal there. You brought Edwin Diaz back. That's obviously a no-brainer. Let's go to Brandon Nimmo. This boy got paid. Like real life player, great OBP player, has problems staying on the field though. Player. You can give me the Mets fan approach, you give me the fantasy approach. Either one's fine here. What's your thoughts on Nimmo? Because it seems like a great guy, but this seems like a lot of money and a long-term deal too.
Yeah, he's definitely a better real life player than he is fantasy for sure. But his defense took a huge step. I mean, he was defensively, he had to be one of the best center fielders in baseball last year. Great OBP guy, like you said. Hustles, a great guy, great clubhouse guy. So I'm happy they brought him back. You need a center fielder, right? If they didn't sign him, I don't know where. I mean, I guess you could get Reynolds. You could have traded for Reynolds, but I like not having to give up prospects for Nimmo. Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to be, smash in fantasy. He's going to be like a 5th outfielder type in the main and a 15-teamer, maybe 4th outfielder. The speed he's fast, but the stolen bases, he just doesn't steal enough. The power's okay, it's not enough. I mean, he does a lot of good things, a lot of things well, just nothing elite, in his profile. So definitely a better real life guy. But as a Mets fan, I mean, definitely pumped to see him back. Homegrown guy, you like seeing those guys stay with your team. So
it is always nice. Always nice to see. You mentioned Carlos Correa, or we kind of talked about him earlier as a guy. You think the deal gets done? I do too. I don't think he's going to leave. I think Cohen wants him. They're going to find a way to make it work. Yeah. I said give him a Buxton type deal where, hey, you play, you earn it, you get it. Like, it's very simple to me. Maybe the deal isn't as long. I don't know. I think there's ways to make it work. If and when, because I'm with you, I think he's still going to be a Met. What's your thoughts on him there? Because that obviously makes that lineup even deeper with Nimmo and Lindor and Big Meat Pete up top there. How do you like Correa in New York?
I mean, I like him, and I think I saw someone tweet that they would bump him up 2 to 3 rounds because he's going to get the third base now. I don't think I'd make that big of a leap in fantasy, at least. There's no speed there really. I mean, his power is nice, but again, it's nothing like elite. I think the run production is going to be nice. RBIs, he's going to be solid fantasy third baseman for sure, and he's got the shortstop as well. So, I mean, like I said, if he's not stealing bases, you can only go so high on him, I think, too. But I think, if you wait, where's he going? 6th, 7th rounds in these drafts? I don't even know.
Yeah.
I mean, as like
yeah.
the 9th or 10th third baseman off the ball. He doesn't even have third base yet.
Yeah, not yet. That's the thing. His ADP in December is 126
Oh,
right now.
man.
He's
Okay.
going high. And if you look at like other third basemen, like where third baseman starts to drop off is the Bregman Gunnar Henderson world. Bregman's going at 82, Gunnar Henderson at 90, and there's a massive drop off after that. So in theory, if you think third base, he's a value for you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess you probably slot him in right around that area. Yeah. Third base, it can get ugly there too after those early options. Yeah. I mean, he's a solid player. He just, people don't like, I hate to say boring, right? Because
He is very boring.
he
Yes.
is. He's a boring fantasy player at least, but
But at the end of the year, his numbers are his numbers. Like you know
yeah,
what you're getting.
yeah. I mean, he's going to hit you probably 270 plus, 20, 25 homers, 80,
Yep.
90 RBIs, and
If he's hitting in front of Lindor, if he's hitting in front of Lindor and Pete, he could score 100 runs in
that's the
reality.
thing too. Yeah, I mean, I guess he'd probably bat second,
Yeah.
right? I would think, which in that lineup, yeah, he could score 100 runs. So, yeah, no, he might be a value then for sure. He's definitely going to move up. I just don't know. I guess the question of how much he moves up now
Bingo.
if he eventually signs.
With that being said, though, as we assume he's obviously going to play third base with the team, what's that do to the guys like Brett Beatty of the world who we're all excited to see? I'm not as worried as Eduardo Escobar. He's older. We know who he is, whatever. Yeah. He could platoon at second and third for you guys or whatever. But Beatty looked like he was going to get a shot this year, and now that got put on hold, it feels like.
And I think he's the number one third base prospect in baseball too, right?
If he's not, he's darn close. Yes,
he's close. Here we are. Steve Cohen's. He doesn't give an F. Like
no, he wants right now. He wants right now.
He's won a block, the number one prospect of the position for 12 years. But I think he's played some left field though in the minors. I could be wrong, but
probably. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they could use him as a trade chip. I mean, he's definitely a big piece. I mean, he's just not gonna languish in the minors. I mean, if they have to move him for someone big, but maybe he plays in left field at some point. But yeah, if they sign Correa, I mean, he's literally not playing third base for this team for the next 10, 11 years. So
hey, you're gonna get traded. That's the name of the
game. I mean, if you're trading him, we were talking, I think, with Rob DiPietro, and we were talking about Leighton Hendricks, and somebody was like, put Beatty in a deal. I'm like, you can't put Beatty in that kind of deal for Hendricks. I mean, he's what, 34, 35 years old?
Yep. I mean, now if you think about it, if you want.
I mean, if you're the White Sox, yeah, you're smashing that.
I guess what you're picturing another like the Edwin Diaz deal where you send Kalenic and a couple other guys. It's going to be something like that. So yes, younger than Hendricks.
That shitbag Cano and his $200 million also. Then.
Yeah, that too. Another prospect I wanted to ask you about, though we saw him towards the end of the year, Francisco Alvarez. You have Omar Narvaez. You still have Thomas Nido. Neither one should be holding that bat out. But as you keep adding more pieces of the puzzle there, it's kind of squeezing out the young kids. What are you hearing in New York on what we should expect from him this year?
I mean, it's kind of all over the map. Nobody really knows. I mean, he could start the year in the minors, right? He could be the DH. He could catch games against lefty, which is kind of where I'm leaning, I think, because they want to get this kid experience, right? He's got to learn in the position if they want to, play in there, right? Mm-hmm. Narvaez is a solid catcher. I mean, you kind of know what you're getting from him, right? So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I don't know if if he's the everyday DH. I mean, that's definitely that would be huge, right? But he doesn't have. Does he have catcher?
No, he's util only right now. That's the kicker. He's going at ADP 303 with util.
I was going to see because I was going to say it might take a while to get those 10 games behind the plate. Yeah, so I mean, it's a dicey pick. I can understand that ADP for sure. Right now, it's a guessing game. I mean, we know Nito is going to be the backup. He's going to get some games. Narvaez is going to be the starter. So. I don't know. I don't think we see him get that catcher eligibility if he does get it until maybe like mid-season.
Yeah, very, very possible.
It's a long time to wait. So
a very long time to wait on a guy that won't be playing every day.
Right,
so
exactly.
That's a tough one right there.
It reminds me of the kid from the Royals last year. This is maybe escaping me now.
Not Melendez, is it?
Melendez, yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't
like
he?
Once he got called up, he was good to go.
He was good to go, right? But he was. Was he DH? Was he UT?
No, he was catcher, but then he started playing outfield. He started playing all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
we had to wait on him for a while. I could see a similar kind of season for Alvarez where he might.
That makes sense.
Hard to draft, but you want to be on that guy maybe 2-3 weeks before you think there's going to be a call up.
And then it's the fun in FPC rules. If no one drafts him, you have to just wait till he's called up. So that's where it gets dicey right there. So which one and then if you pick him up and then drop him now he's available, then until he gets called up in the player pool. So those are the kind of fun little intricacies of the NFBC format.
Yeah,
right there.
True. Yep.
One of the last guys I think I'm going to ask you about here on the Mets is a 34-year-old outfielder who, even when it seemed like it wasn't a great year, had 16 homers, 18 stolen bases, 76 run scores, and hit 292. And that's Starling Marte. And it feels like with all the moves they're making, he's getting buried because he's like hitting 6 now, potentially, in that lineup. Yeah. And he still looks like he's going to be quasi-productive. And before I give you the floor, his ADP for once, it's that's Noelve Marte. It's 86. He used to be like a top 2-round player. Now you're still paying kind of a premium, but not. So what are you looking at with a guy like Starling Marte?
Yeah, I mean, it's just health with him, right? He's always missing games. It's tough. I mean, when he's out there playing, I mean, he's probably a top 3-round player. Although he definitely didn't run nearly as much last year at all. He had that huge year 2 years ago. But I even remember watching all the games. I'm like, he just didn't choose to run. So I think the injuries played a factor there. But yeah, I mean, he's just, he's one of these guys. He's a 5-category guy when he's out there. So to me, yeah, I mean, if the price is, what's he going at now? I don't even hear
86.
I mean, to me, that's palatable right there. I think, I could see him outproducing for sure. If you get, even 140 games, 130 games out of him, I mean, that you'll probably find value there. So, yeah, I don't mind that price.
He seems like an older, better batting average version of Randy Arozarena to me. That's kind of where we're going. Like, I think Randy has a little more power and speed. Like, he might be more 2020. We're not sure Starling gets there. But Starling hit for average. I feel good about that compared to Randy. And you're going to get him 2 to 3 rounds later. So I don't think it's a bad fallback plan. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, if he's out there playing, he's easily a top 30 fantasy outfielder.
Let me clarify. He had the 16 homers, 18 steals in only 118 games.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's like you said, if he's playing, it goes back to like 130 to 140 even.
Yeah, per game basis.
We're back to 2020 probably.
Yeah, it's all health. I mean, it's kind of like the deGrom thing for batters. If you told me, you're getting 140 games out of Starling Marte, I mean, I feel comfortable taking him round 3 easy.
Most definitely. Do you have anything else on the Mets? Otherwise, I'm not going to bug you anymore on it. It's a fun team, man. You got to be happy. As a fan, probably a lifelong fan, you got to be loving this.
Yeah, I am. I mean, it's just, I was happy to see Diaz back. I mean, the whole Tommy Trumpus, I mean, it's just created like a whole,
amazing. I even would tweet about it as just a baseball fan. That was amazing. It was electric.
Yeah.
It was like the coolest thing.
Crowd goes wild. It's just, I'm like, he had to stay after that. It was like created. It's like a whole new, it's like a show when he comes out, So I was happy to see him. I mean, it'd be hard to think he could even come close to that. I mean, that was one of the best reliever years you'll ever see. If he's even 80% of what he did last year, I would sign for that right now. But this team is stacked. Let's be honest. I mean, they're going to be in it. The NL East is stacked too. So
big time.
People think Mets are running away with. I mean, the Phillies, the Braves.
The Phillies just went to the World Series, folks. Just don't forget that they're right there.
I mean, they won 87 games, but whatever.
The Braves won it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
The Marlins are always a pain in the ass. Like they're just enough pitching wise to make it difficult.
Yeah, like we're definitely not coasting to the play. I mean, I'd be shocked if we didn't make the playoffs, but the division is going to be a little harder than people think. I think
exactly. You guys are the front runners, but it is not an easy road. That's not like the Astros' path to victory type situation. Different divisions.
The Braves are to me just as good.
Yeah, Braves are really
lineup
good.
Is stacked.
Yep.
Their pitching is. The back end too is not as good, I guess, but that lineup is pretty
very good.
pretty potent. Yeah.
Now the Nationals is your only team you don't have to worry about. You're good there.
Nah.
But you got 3 other teams. And real quick, just for fun, Edwin Diaz or Emmanuel Clase? That's the question right now in fantasy worlds. It's like 1A, 1B, but
Yeah.
which one would you take?
I mean, I got
all bias aside.
I'd still go Diaz. Just
I've been going Diaz as well.
I mean, yeah, he's just, I know we've seen 2 of these seasons out of him now too. I mean, he has that all worlds by far #1 reliever season. So I mean, you can't go wrong with either guy, but I'm going Diaz if I had to choose.
That's where I've been too. I got 2 questions from Nick Bird here. You didn't play any Gladiator, did you?
I have not. I have actually been listening to a couple of pods Waxman did on that, and I think you just did one too. I
just did one the other night with Gialdi. Yeah,
listen to that. Yeah, no, it looks interesting.
It's wild. His question was thoughts on Gladiator strategy of punting saves and stacking your offense when everyone is grabbing closers. Since you haven't done any drafts, people grab closers early, obviously, because you can't work the wire, and that literally this is what you got. So don't look at that ADP when you're doing research.
So that's just essentially roto. You can't. There's no waiver wire.
It's 23-man roster. You fill your roster every position, and you walk away. Gladiator, survival of the fittest, basically.
Okay.
And it's a 5x5 roto.
I was going to say it's kind of like best ball, but it's roto style. Okay.
Yeah, and there's no bench like where best ball you can you have 3 second basemans and pick the best. This is all you got. It's wild.
I mean, just hearing. I mean, to me, health, right? It's
all it is. It's health.
If you're like one of the healthier teams, you're going to compete by default.
You should, barring freakish stuff. Yes.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, I might look into that. I know they had. Is there more than one? There's a one that filled?
The first one's full. They say they're not doing another one, but I keep poking Derek, so we'll see. I said you named it Gladiator 1, which means there could be a Gladiator 2. So don't tell me this. I think they want to see some DCs filled up because not many people were doing DCs while this was going on.
Yeah,
and that's where more of the money is made. So,
and I've been so wrapped up in football, man. So that's why I see it's hard for me to. I usually don't commit fully to baseball until after football is done. So, this is even earlier start than I'm used to. But I'm looking forward to
it. His other question for you was long term. Who do you prefer, Jazz Chisholm or Anthony Volpe of the Yankees?
For fantasy wise, or just in baseball wise?
Fantasy wise.
I mean, I'm a big Jazz fan too, and I was
Jazzy fan. Yep.
Yeah, I loved him last year. Also, and I mean that's similar to Cruz.
Talk about a ceiling player, 30-30 type guy. Oh yeah,
exactly. And a lot of people fear that batting average, that risk there, and those are the guys I love targeting, and because they get you 240, 250. I mean, you get that in round 6 or 7 with that stolen base upside, the power upside.
Yep.
I mean, that's where you win these tourneys, I think, too. So I love Jazz. Yeah, just got to stay healthy, too. Another guy that, he puts it all out there. You wonder if he can get 150 game season in. So we'll see.
If he ever did that, we might see 40-40. I'm super high on him, and people think I'm crazy, but I know you see what I see in this. I was all in last year. Trust me, I ate it hard on a couple.
And he would have got there too.
Well, he was pacing it was glorious early on.
Yeah. And he's a fun guy to watch too.
That's the other part. That's like the little lame joke I always make is in the end, fantasy should be fun. So have fun. And if you got Jazz on your team, how much fun is that? Watching that?
Yeah.
Come on.
And I love he's cocky too. Maybe that's why I just love.
He backs it up. He backs it up.
He's got the energy, the bat flips. I mean, I'm all for that. So
last year when Donnie Baseball was like, I'm not starting him because of this, and he basically went public with it on Twitter. It was like next thing you know, Jazz is starting every day hitting bombs, and Donnie got real quiet real quick.
And did they begin last year? He's batting at a 9-hole for a while.
Versus lefties, he was either sitting or batting 9th.
I mean,
it was like, come on, Donnie. Come on. So, yeah. Some guys try to overthink it a little too much.
But on the Volpe point, I mean, I think that's a lot of reason why they didn't go after Correa. So they have high hopes for him. So I don't know if it's coming this year, maybe at some point, but I think next year, I mean, that's they're pumping him up here in New York like crazy. Like he's the next Jeter almost. So we'll see how that goes. I think he's a Jersey kid too, a New York City kid.
I believe so, yeah.
He's a local kid. So, he'll be a fun name to watch moving forward.
100%. What's always fun is chatting with you, my friend. We're going to wrap it up there, but it's awesome. looking forward to doing this again with you and seeing you in Vegas. But any final thoughts? You want a swan song for 2022? The floor is yours. 2023, whatever you want. The floor is yours, my friend.
Nah, I appreciate you having me on, Bubba. As always, you're one of the guys I listen to all the time. So, yeah, and I'm just looking to go out there again and kind of prove all the doubters wrong again. And they're going to be like, oh, 40 years in a row, fluke. It is what it is, man. I have fun doing this. I have fun talking to you guys, and definitely as we get closer to draft season, we'll definitely do another pod if you want.
Yep, for sure, man. I always love chatting with you, so we'll do it for sure. Maybe I'll draft it with you, and then you can kick my butt, and then we'll talk about it again.
And you're being in Vegas, right?
That's the plan, and I'm debating bringing some podcasting stuff with me to Vegas, so we got some real fun there.
Yeah,
so,
I've done the football one a couple times, so I'm excited. It's my first time for baseball out there, so it'll be cool to put the faces with all the names on Twitter and whatnot. I'm sure some people will be happy to see me, others might not be, but I'll come with smiles, man. Whether you like me or you hate me, I'll be smiling either way.
You'd be surprised in person. Things are a little different, as you know. So get away from the keyboard. Everything's fine. But it'll be fun. It'll be fun. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you out there, and we will definitely pod again before the season starts. No question about it. Everybody make sure you follow them on Twitter at @the_Gildz, GILDZ. Thanks for joining me, my friend.
Thank you, Bubba. Appreciate it.
Everybody's Bench with Bubba, episode 530 with the Gildz. Catch you guys later.